basically our tea, even coconut, some part of our rubber, and even the cinnamon goes to the Middle East. So that is going to get affected. And when the Syria, Iran and Iraq got affected, our tea market affected. So that's going to have a huge problem. If our remittances are going to get affected, the tourism is going to affect it, export is going to affect it, means you will get less dollars. Then if the same amount of dollars goes out of the country, what happens? There is no dollars. Then what happens is people will panic and start try to gather the dollars thereafter. If a radical people comes in and say that we have nothing to lose, a system is about to collapse and it's do or die situation, and we will let loose everything we have, could be very, very dangerous. So very difficult to predict, probably until the next 72 hours for a week or so. Then we will have some clear picture depending on the signals that's come from the second layer of their leadership.
Welcome to special edition of Insight. Today we are going to talk about what's happening in the Middle East and how it's going to have an impact on Sri Lanka. Around 7 to 10% of Sri Lankans are at the moment living in the Middle East. They are working there, they are sending remittances. Most of the Middle East airports are used as transit hub for Sri Lankan tourism. There is a significant impact on Sri Lanka because of what is happening in the Middle East. Let's talk about it, and we have a special guest here, former Foreign Minister, Mr. Sabry, Presidential Counsel. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
How do you see the situation now? This was expected for a long time, and Israel was saying that they were going to attack. US was saying that was the only solution to disarm nuclear power Iran. How do you see things happening now with also their religious leader, the leader Ayatollah, I think Khomeini, has already been killed?
Yeah, that situation is pretty dangerous. I think Israel has, over a period of time, is calling the shot in American politics. It is not the Americans who take the decision, it is the Israelis. We all know that. Israelis and the Zionists. So basically, in 1992, it was Netanyahu who went before the Senate and told that the threat from 5 countries, all of them been eliminated one by one. Iran was the last bastion. Iraq, Libya, Syria, Yemen, and Lebanon. So this is the 6th one. So therefore it is expected, it's a matter of time, when and where and all those things. So now the situation is pretty dangerous. It all evolved within the next 72 hours as to how Iran is going to react to this. So if Iran decide that there's nothing more to lose and come out with whatever they have, could be dangerous, because already yesterday they have started attacking some of the bases in regional countries. So Saudi Arabia to other Middle Eastern countries. So I hope we are in a very, very dangerous situation. So our hope is that this will recede as soon as possible. So something like Venezuelan situation where things quickly got under control. But here it all depends on within next 72 hours as to what US want from here onwards, what Israel will do, and how will be the Iranian government or whoever the caretakers right now respond to this.
How do you see Sri Lanka's response to the crisis there in the Middle East, and what's going to happen? Because we saw remittances hitting record high last year with $8 billion. Tourism is booming now, and all these are connected to the Middle East inevitably. How do you see things unfolding?
I know.
with the crisis?
Yeah, basically Sri Lanka has three ways of getting our remittances: exports, tourism, and remittances. All three are going to be affected by this. Basically, our tea, even coconut, and some part of our rubber, and even the cinnamon goes to the Middle East. So that is going to get affected. And when the Syria, Iran, and Iraq got affected, our tea market affected. So that's going to have a huge problem. Then, if this persists and it get escalated to the other region, then what happens, like during the COVID, if the jobs are lost in the Middle East, then remittances come down. And with that, if the jobs are lost, if they've been asked to go back to Sri Lanka, then they will come here and we will have unemployed people in the country. So providing jobs is not easy right now. So that will have an impact. And thirdly, as you have very correctly pointed out, most of our tourism, probably about 70 to 80%, 70% probably comes from the tourists who spend money, comes through Middle East. So that will also get affected. So therefore, I hope things will settle down as soon as possible. But we need to understand that. And more than that, I'm worried when the Strait of Hormuz is being closed or anything happen there, that will affect the transportation oil. 20% of the world oil comes in, and it's not the 20%, it's where our oil comes in, our oil, Chinese oil and all that. If the prices go up on that, for example, let's assume that the prices go up by 20%, for example, it will have a significant impact on Sri Lanka. Our oil bill probably about 300 million right now. If it's 20% more, is about 360. That's into 12 or 700 million. That's how it all works. If our remittances come down by 100 million a month, that's about 1.2 billion. If our tourism has an effect of 50, 60 billion, so it's about 2 billion loss, means a huge problem. So that I hope we have to quickly find this, expect this, and hope that it doesn't escalate beyond this.
What does this mean for Sri Lanka's economic recovery? Because we are in a economic recovery cycle and we have stabilized the country, but we haven't seen the growth yet. What does the Middle East crisis mean for Sri Lanka's economic recovery?
It will have a great impact if this crisis is going to be prolonged or sustained. This is precisely what happened during 2020 to 22. Because of the COVID, and before that, due to the Easter Sunday attack, our tourism revenues almost became zero. So that means we are losing $3 to $4 billion a year rather. And our remittances used to be 7 to 7.2 billion, came down to 3.6 billion, if you remember, in 2022. So that had a massive effect on that. And on top of that, if you remember, the barrel of an oil, which was $40 to $45, now it's about $65, went up to $105 when the Russians went and attacked the Ukraine. So these were real effects on all those things. What we can do is to learn from those mistakes that we have undergone from 2019 to 22 and to find a way, because it will definitely get an affectation. Yes.
We cannot predict how things unfold in future, but provided that if the escalation is going to continue and it's going to go out with a fully blown war, what's the remedy Sri Lanka has?
I think Sri Lanka you have to immediately identify our future commitment somewhere down the line. What is our payment for this year, next year, debt. And then you have to see that what is our export bill, and see that how much we could comfortably spend on our oil. So before it get too late, if we have a real problem and forecast, then I think some areas we need to restrict. Oil bill, we have to have probably at the given circumstances of the time, say 200 million, 250 million, 300 million, only what we can afford per a month. to oil bill, then if necessary, you have to rationalize the oil now.
Does
before
that
it's
mean
too
you
late.
have to go to the
QR code
codes.
probably not immediately, probably if it no point in wasting for it. And then probably we might also have to look at the restriction of the larger amount of our money goes to import of the vehicles. So temporarily until the things settled, probably you start to either restrict or total ban either of it, depending on the seriousness of the situation. Then luxury goods also, probably if you can't afford that, import restriction, which we did at those time, about 1,500 items were restricted. So in what we have to do is to if enough inflow comes in, no harm in allowing that inflows goes out of the country for imports of vehicles, things what is necessary. That's the right thing to do, but desperate times call for desperate measures. So if you are not certain, and you have to have a forecast for 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, 1 year. During that period of time, if our remittances are going to affect, if our tourism is going to get affected, if our exports are going to affect it, then you need to calibrate and find out how much are going to lose. If so, we can allow what happened in 2022 to get our reserves go down to $20 million US when I took over finance ministry. So in order to manage that, before that, we need to introduce steps. How do you do that? Probably restricting the oil, restricting luxury goods, restricting things that are absolutely not necessary, and restricting things including vehicles. So can't help. It's not the ideal thing to do. But those options must be at least in the table for consideration and immediately take decision if the situation escalates. So if the situation doesn't escalate, if it goes down in 1 week or 2 weeks, I don't think you need to panic. But I am saying that you need to have simulations of 3 different scenarios. One is on the assumption that this will not go beyond probably 2 to 3 weeks or a month. Second scenario, this might go to 3 to 6 months or a year. Third scenario is this could prolong for about 2 years or 3 years. So how do you structure that? This is exactly what happened during the Ukraine war. Though it was not very close to us, it affected the tourism because Ukrainians were coming to Sri Lanka. It affected the tourism because the people from the Europe was coming to Sri Lanka. It affected the prices of grain, coal, fertilizer, and oil in a massive way. No one realized that. That's what squeezed our economy. The last time when I met you, I told 3 things happened for Sri Lanka: bad policy, bad luck, bad luck, bad policy, and bad decisions. So why I did say bad luck? COVID attacks and also the timing of the Ukrainian war. Prices went up just like that. You remember, right? Coal prices went by 150%. The fertilizer, unbelievable, 3-4 times. So we must simulate all those positions by learning from the past mistake and have 3 different set of responses which we could calibrate into the evolving situation rather than wait into a stat. That's what we should do if we have, I would do, because we have learned from the past mistake.
We also saw sharp depreciation of the rupee during the crisis. If you remember, it went from 200 to 360 within few days. And it also went, I think it went up to 380 before it stabilized around 100, 280, 290. Do you see a similar situation here as well?
Not immediately, but eventually it all depends on how much of dollars you are getting into the country and how much of dollars going out of the country. So that is why that calibration is necessary. So your response must be based on that. If our remittances are going to get affected, the tourism is going to affected, export is going to affected, means you will get less dollars. Then if the same amount of dollars goes out of the country, what happens? There is no dollars. Then what happens is people will panic and start try to gather the dollars thereafter. So then you will create a gray market. People will go from the gray market and want to put their rupee into dollars. Then banks will not have money also. So luckily, I think we have a governor who is sensible. I don't think he will try to, at this point in time, trying to attack and fix the rate. So let the market conditions do that. So I think that on the hindsight, I told last time also, 2022 collapse had to happen somewhere down the line. Good that it happened, if you look at now, because rather than it's going to happen today or next year, because it already happened and we have learned and stabilized and coming forward. So therefore, there are a lot of lessons to learn. So if we carefully manage this, rupee could be managed here, because US is also not very, very interested in strengthening the dollar, because they also want to weaken the dollar to make their export competitive. So because of that, if you carefully look at it, Sri Lankan rupee last year against the pound is 360 rupees have become now 425 rupees. So is franc. So is with Australian dollars. We have depreciated 10 to 15%. Only against dollar we are stable. That is because dollar has not appreciated. Dollar has depreciated against the basket of other foreign currencies. So we are only talking about the dollar itself. But compared to now, my son is studying, I know that, in UK. So I have to send him money. So what was 365 in 2024 December, when I last sent him money, had become 425. Because a dollar is not very had not really appreciated, and it has depreciated against the other basket of foreign currencies, we feel that it has not really depreciated, only about a 2 to 3%. It all depends on as to how we manage the inflows and outflows.
We are at the moment on an IMF program, and we are supposed to start repaying our foreign debts, especially the sovereign bond debts, from 2028 April onwards. How do you see that possibility now? Because we are facing this uncertainty and the risk of not having dollars, right? So, which means we won't be able to accumulate reserves as much as we want.
If it goes as of now, I don't see a major problem in servicing the current situation, because last year and the next year and the 28, if you carefully look at it, 2025 we would have serviced close to about 4.6 billion. So that's the highest, up to 33 or something. So it should not be a problem. But problem will only arise if the current position of our primary account balance in dollar terms get affected. That means if inflow is not supported the outflow, then naturally our reserves go down now, because you have to take from the reserve. It's a simple example. It's like you have a salary, for example, say 200,000. So you have every month you have a bill to pay for about 190,000. So you are comfortable. But for whatever the reason, your salary comes down to 100,000, but your expenses goes out to 190,000. It won't come down. You have to whatever. Then what do? You start pulling out your savings. So your savings will go down. So a country's saving is the reserves. So that's why we have to be very, very careful. Have a close eye on inflows and the outflows. As long as inflows comes in, we can maintain the current lifestyle. If the inflows are going to affect it by less export, by less tourism, or by less remittances, then you can't just sit and wait. You need to control the outflow. That's where I think we need to be smart.
Which means we are talking about import controls.
If necessary, not immediately. I think you look at that. That's what I would like to see a 1 month, 3 month, 12 month, and 3-year kind of a program. And dependent on that, act on that.
So basically alternatives.
Alternatives. Yeah.
Sri Lanka since 1995.
Let's talk about the Middle East crisis itself. What's the possibility of the crisis continuing, like Iran attacking, and it also has nuclear power, right? Which it has promised not to use for wars and other aspects of violence. But given what has happened now, its leader being killed, and the US intervening into the territory, and also the regional countries also giving the bases to US. How do you see the possibility of this conflict or the crisis continuing?
So it depends on, because I think the top brass of the entire Iranian leadership had been eliminated. So you really don't know the character of the second brass there, unlike in the Western countries or the countries like in our parts of the world, which is very visible and transparent. That here it's not. It's shrouded in some sort of a secrecy. So therefore, we really don't know the character of the people who are going to take over. That's what I told, that next 72 hours to probably about a week will be very, very crucial. So whether they will make use of this, one thing one must understand, Iranian regime is also not very, very popular in their country. I don't think anything less, more than 45% it supports them. Over a period of time, they are also being frustrated by some of the restrictions which have been brought in, and then their elections are also is managed with all those things. So therefore, it all depends on the people who are going to take over from here. If they talk over and say that this is an opportunity for reforms and bring some liberalism in, have proper elections and get the young people to come in, and that probably is they may not escalate this and probably do that. But if a radical people comes in and say that we have nothing to lose, a system is about to collapse and it's do or die situation, and we will let loose everything we have, could be very, very dangerous. So very difficult to predict, probably until the next 72 hours for a week or so. Then we will have some clear picture depending on the signals what's come from the second layer of their leadership. So that's very important. So the dangerous part is what shouldn't happen in Iran is who is going to take over? The entire system collapse. So Iran is stabilizing, despite West doesn't like them, they are a stabilizing force there. 99, close to about 100 million people. They look after so many of other people in the region. Some close to about 7 million the Afghan refugees living there. So the largest refugees they are feeding. So they are good people. They are the country in the world. They have never been invaded by somebody. If you have been to that country, and places like Isfahan and also beautiful, and they have a kind of a Persian history, written history, unbroken chain for about 5,000 years. They are very proud people. So it's up to them to take over their future. So I hope that they will also use this opportunity for proper reforms, get the public involved in that, and so that the government continue to retain the popularity which it deserves. So it's all depends on to what extent US want to go all the way, want to dismantle and install a puppet government in that, or like in Venezuela, allow the government to continue, and the government also take a clue out of it and go for reforms. These are different possibilities. These possibilities are, one possibility is either regime fight back towards the end, use everything that they have, that could be devastating. Second possibility is that like in Venezuela, the second layer takes over. They become more liberal. They will be open up. They will change their stance, and they probably give up nuclear and start concentrating on their economy and rights and democracy and freedom and things like that. Third possibility is that US trying to install a puppet regime there, and people resist from there. And hopefully country will not disintegrate into what happened in Iraq and other places. Very unlikely, because Iranian people are generally disciplined, hardworking, intelligent, and they have so much of natural resources. You name it, they are among the first 10. Whether it's uranium, whether it is oil, whether it's gold, whether it's gas, everything they have. They are a very, very. That is why Israelis have been targeting them for a long, long period of time. So they know that that's the most powerful country in the region, largest country in the region, resourceful country in the region, and which is not a puppet government to the West. So that's why it's important. So I hope, if you ask me what is my preferred choice, is that the structure remains it, but they do real reforms and allow the public to take part in decision making. So they become representative of the people's will at any given time. Take out the Sri Lankan situation. We found it very, very difficult to get the reforms going, because that was toward the end of the government, and government was unpopular. But same reforms which are totally objected, but the current government is doing well. Same reform. Yeah, so that is, with the public support. Why that? Because they had a new mandate. So that's why it's important that whether you live country bigger than everyone else. So that's why they also must realize that you can't stick to an ideology and force people to believe in that ideology. It is good as good as the people are willing to buy that for you. So only country which had managed to be there for a long, long period of time on a democratic society, at least elections are held, is Singapore. That is because I was asking recently when Mahubani came into Sri Lanka, Dr. Mahubani, he's saying, I asked him, how do you manage? We continue to win election, 60, 70, 80% and all those things. The thing is, they continue to deliver. If you look back 10 years or 5 years before, when they were elected, some or other, all the prime ministers managed to give a better lifestyle for them toward the end of the 5 years. So the question is, do you want to upset this beautiful momentum which was ongoing? So majority have been buying that, and they have been keep on re-electing them for good 60 years or 70 years, and that's why they have done well. So what is lacking in a society like Iran is, when you have an ideology, over a period of time, you lose touch with the younger generation. You lose touch with what the world is evolving. They want, whatever happened, we are stuck with this ideology. So I think Iran missed the bus 20, 30 years ago. They would have allowed a little bit of pluralism coming in, have a good secular constitution with religious rights being protected, and allow youngsters to coming into the system. I feel that otherwise people wouldn't have gone into the street repeatedly with so much of risk. People won't get into the street unless they feel that there is something to happen in their country.
Coming back to Sri Lanka, in the event of a worst case scenario, like you said, the three scenarios, like 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, or more than 1 year. So let's take about more than 1 year scenario. What are the alternatives Sri Lanka has?
Alternatives, basically, as far as tourism is concerned, we need to find different routes and connections, and probably look at the east more aggressively. China, India, Japan, Eastern countries, so that you outset the import from here to here. and then direct flights from Colombo to avoid Middle Eastern carriers and all those things. So you have to offset what is now it is all mostly the Middle Eastern carriers which carry most of the flight. So you need to look at that alternative on that. And then if it is remittances, then you have to probably aggressively look at the new markets for that, for probably South Korea, Japan, high-end jobs and things like that. So that's another possibility of looking at. And then thirdly, we need to calibrate our own foreign currencies and all and see whether some restrictions are necessary. If it goes for a long period of time, I feel it is necessary. No point of waiting till the last moment. Because last year, $2 billion went on vehicles. We can't afford, if we could afford last year, because we had steady remittances coming in, exports have grown, and tourism was picking up. Imagine if those are affected, inflows are lower, and the same 2 billion goes out of the country. It could be dangerous. It will eat into our reserves. So some of those drastic action you need to take.
So we spoke about the threats so far. What are the opportunities this crisis has given Sri Lanka?
Probably opportunity in the sense we can work harder and look at new markets for our export product. Open up Sri Lanka as an alternative destination, avoiding probably the Middle Eastern ports and all those things, because we are strategically located. How to make Sri Lankan ports maybe 3-4 times bigger and get more carriers to come in, and then make Sri Lanka a hub instead of the Middle Eastern hub for the Europeans and the others to come in. So these are opportunities which are not available. If it goes for a long period of time, probably people want to avoid Middle East and they will probably come directly to here. This can become a hub for land and sea travel, which is anyway. So those are opportunities, and in the meantime, promote Sri Lanka as a export destination. Yesterday, I saw somebody had put a tweet. I came to Dubai, looking at as a tax haven. Now I am in bunker, sheltering myself from bomb. I hope that will not last long and it will quickly subside. But when that happens, you can't help somebody else's crisis, somebody else's opportunity. So you can position yourself as an alternative destination for your. Now government has recently done that nomad visa. It's a good thing. So likewise you open it up and allow that in Sri Lanka. So Sri Lanka becomes kind of an alternative, more affordable alternative to Singapore and Hong Kong for the investors, and more affordable alternative to, or more secure alternative to the Dubai going forward. So those are the possibilities: Dubai, Qatar, and Abu Dhabi.
One of the key important elements of all this, managing crisis is the foreign policy. Though Sri Lanka has said it's non-aligned, we have seen time to time, they have been going towards somebody. Now, even today, Sri Lanka is under pressure from some countries to go with some countries, even to deal with trade or FTA. What are the key challenges you see in the foreign policy, given the Middle Eastern crisis and the impending economic difficulties Sri Lanka might face if it prolongs? How do you see things?
No, it's a very complex situation. Sri Lanka cannot afford to take sides. And I do agree that the perception, both within and internationally, we are under a lot of pressure from certain countries to take certain calls, both on trade, economy, political, and long-standing our positions on Palestine and Israel and all those things are also being shaken. So they have been disproportionately influenced by a country or two. So that's there. So that may not augur well on the long run. We cannot isolate our friends who have been with us on thick and thin. So therefore, we need to assert ourselves very carefully. We need to know the size of our thumb. We cannot demand certain things. So therefore, but we are much better positioned than 2022 today comparatively. So therefore, I think we must make use of this opportunity to continue to work with all the countries. China is an important country because they bring a lot of investment into the country, and they're a leader. And the Chinese seems to be a little disappointed. I don't see that even the Sinopac, the investment is proceeding as quick as country expects and all of us want. So I hope that if there are any issues, sit and negotiate and get that going, because that will open up so many other areas of big investment for China. So China is looking for it, and then Chinese are very, very interested in creating another alternative corridor, a sea lane through their Kunming and also the Burma and coming all the way to our Hambantota port. So otherwise, what happens is they have to go through the Singapore, that small strait there.
Corridor.
Yeah. So therefore, they are looking at an alternative. That's a good opportunity for us. In the interim, India is doing well. India had managed very, very well, and so we have to work closely with India, with providing opportunity for investment and allowing free flow of people and goods and material going up and down, and use the Indian investment for our advantage. In the meantime, continue to work with the Middle East, because remittances, tea, everything comes from there. So it's a challenging situation. Some time ago, someone asked me why we were not having, when I was the foreign minister, a written foreign policy. And I said that a country like Sri Lanka cannot afford to have one. We should have guidelines within us. Easy for people to come and say, guideline within us, but you can't put it in writing. So you need to take into account of a given situation and take the most suitable call for Sri Lanka. But fundamentally being, Sri Lanka should continue to remain independent. Very, very important. We must remain independent, but multi-aligned. Multi-aligned. Those days you call it as non-aligned. Non-aligned means sometimes you give the wrong impression that you don't work with anyone. No, it's not the case. You are independent. You are not being dictated by anyone. You take sovereign choices, but you do work with everyone. So is one of my words that I say that it has to be a multi-aligned foreign relationship. So you work with so many people. So hopefully that will give a lot of opportunity for Sri Lanka.
One of the possible crises in Sri Lanka could be if the Sri Lankan workers in the Middle East return to Sri Lanka and try to find jobs. You have 1.5 to 1.8 million people in the Middle East, and most of them are not in the white collar jobs. They are at lower level, and in the event of they being sent to Sri Lanka, we are going to face a humanitarian crisis. Especially in terms of the employment. Any suggestion to address that?
No, I think that's something unimaginable crisis. I don't think it will happen because one country faced that 1990 when Iraq invaded Kuwait. Sri Lankan economy suffered a massive loss. Just one country. So imagine the entire country. That's about Sri Lankan. 140,000 Sri Lankans were living at that time in Kuwait. Today it has come to about 1.2 million people in the Middle East. Saudi Arabia, UAE, Kuwait, Oman, Bahrain, the entire region. So that could be devastating. I hope that it will not go there. So to the entire people to come. So that is going to be enormous. So I hope that will not happen. There is nothing that you can really do if that kind of thing happen immediately. it takes time for us to find alternative places and accommodations, the issues. But I don't think that it will go there, hopefully.
Thank you very much for your insight and in-depth responses, Mr.
you.
Sabry.
Thank you very much, Anil. Thank you.
That's it for today. In the special edition, we wanted to do it to educate the public about the risk and opportunities because of the Middle East crisis. Thank you for watching. Let's meet in another program. See you.